Zoos Through the Ages, written by Kira Freed. Introduction. When you visit a zoo, do you ever wonder how humans began to keep other animals in captivity? Have you noticed that some animals are kept in small cages, while others have more space to roam? If you've been to more than one zoo, you also might have noticed that some zoos are larger and more modern than others. Do animals at different zoos appear to receive different types of care? Zoos have changed their practices over the centuries, and they continue to change today. Zoos vary greatly in size and in the amount of money they have for expansions and upgrades. We'll look at how zoos began and how their purpose has changed, and learn about the history of keeping and displaying captive animals. Captive animals long ago. Most of the great civilizations have kept wild animals on display. Long ago, only kings and other rulers could afford this privilege, so keeping animals became a symbol of wealth and power. Animals were given as extravagant gifts, similar to gold and gemstones. Rulers kept these exotic animals for their own enjoyment, so cages were designed for easy viewing, with little regard for the comfort and care of the animals. As explorers traveled around the world, they discovered animals they had never seen before. They often transported these animals back to their homelands, along with other treasures such as spices, jewels, and silk. The Romans were known for their use of animals for what they considered popular crowd entertainment, and what animal rights activists today would consider incredible cruelty. Roman leaders orchestrated fights between wild animals, such as lions and bears, as well as between gladiators and these animals. Countless numbers of animals died in what are now thought of as spectacles of torture and cruelty. Many of these animals were caught in the wild, while others were bred in captivity to ensure a steady supply for these brutal displays of ferocity and strength. During the Middle Ages, most people paid little attention to nature, but by the 1200s, there was renewed interest in animal collections, and rulers often exchanged animals as gifts. Frederick II, King of Germany 1212 to 1220, Holy Roman Emperor 1220 to 1250, had an animal collection that included cheetahs trained for hunting. Frederick traveled with his animals, taking lions, elephants, camels, and other creatures on a trip to Germany for his wedding. As befitted honored guests at such an important event, the animals were decorated with ornaments, gems, and expensive cloth. Animals on public display continued to be regarded purely as objects of curiosity. They were kept in small cages with metal bars and had no way to hide from people's view or retain their natural behaviors. Thinking critically. What did people's treatment of animals long ago indicate about their beliefs regarding the importance of humans relative to other living things? In your opinion, how might these beliefs relate to how people treated each other long ago? How have these beliefs changed or not changed over the centuries? The first zoos. Beginning in the 1700s, the power and privilege of kings and queens declined, and common people came into decision-making positions. Many royalty-only rights changed, including the sole right to keep and study wild animals. During the French Revolution of the 1790s, a royal animal collection was relocated to a botanical garden in Paris known as the Jardin des Plantes, Garden of Plants. This collection became the first known public zoological garden, or zoo. During the same time period, circuses and traveling shows with exotic animals were popular throughout what would later become the United States. Touring displays of North American animals attracted curious crowds, as did mixed collections of minerals, fossils, and plants. It's a fact. In the 1700s, London's citizens were allowed to visit the animal collection housed at the Tower of London. They had the option either to pay a small sum of money as admission or to donate a cat or dog as food for the bears or big cats. The early 1800s brought the development of larger cities, as well as the idea of setting aside natural areas to be preserved as recreational parkland. With more open space and greater interest in the natural world, more zoological parks and gardens were created, places where people could see a variety of animals and plants. London's Regent's Park Zoo was established in 1828 for the purpose of studying captive animals and applying that knowledge to their wild relatives. It became the example for zoos that would be established in Europe and the United States during the rest of the century. Zoos rapidly gained in popularity, offering people a respite from the dirty, ugly cities of the time, as well as close glimpses into the lives of wild animals. The establishment of zoos did not guarantee adequate care for their residents, particularly not by today's standards. Little was known then about the nutritional and environmental needs of the animals, so their health often suffered. Social animals that normally lived in family groups were caged individually and felt stress from their separation. Because bare concrete cages could be hosed down easily, most animals had no objects or furniture to climb on except for sleeping shelves for big cats. Zoo animals had nothing to interrupt their boredom or provide stimulation. Early zoos rarely displayed information about animals' places of origin or natural habits. Most interested visitors learned only the animals' names and feeding times. Shifting the focus. Over time, it became harder to obtain animals from the wild. Governments of foreign countries began to consider their wildlife as valuable natural resources that should be purchased. Also, some sought-after animals had already been trapped and hunted to near extinction. These changes put pressure on zoos to take better care of their animals, since they were not so easily replaced. Zoos shifted their focus from pure entertainment to the health requirements of their residents, as well as captive breeding programs. Research revealed that zoo animals were more likely to breed if they were healthy and if their space felt similar to their natural home. The 1960s were a decade of many changes in thinking and values in the United States. One positive change was the greater importance placed on the natural world. In the 1970s, various organizations put pressure on zoo managers to improve animal care. Some believe that all zoos should be closed and captive animals freed. During this time, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, AZA, clarified the importance of wild animal collections in educating the public and advancing our scientific knowledge. Also during this time, zoos began cooperating with each other. As a result, captive animals received better care, lived in less stressful, more natural environments, and bred with greater success. Zoos as conservation centers. In recent years, zoos have taken on a new role. As humans continue to multiply, we destroy more and more natural habitats in our efforts to obtain food, building materials, and land to live on and farm. These practices have resulted in some animal species becoming extinct in their own natural environments and surviving only in zoos. For some of these threatened species, zoo captive breeding programs and, when possible, reintroduction into protected wild places are the best hope for these animals to continue to live. The AZA places increased emphasis on education, conservation, and scientific study above the entertainment value of zoos. Zoos will need to keep pace with changes in attitudes, technology, and the environment to fulfill their mission. One of the most important modern-day activities of many zoos is participation in Species Survival Plans, SSPs. This captive breeding program, developed by the AZA, focuses on the survival of many animal species in danger of becoming extinct in the wild. Coordinated by zoo professionals, it involves many zoos working together. The primary goal of a species survival plan is to maintain a healthy, genetically diverse population of an endangered species. Genetics is the field of science that studies how similar traits are passed on from one generation to the next. Every cell in an animal's body contains genetic material that functions like a blueprint for body structures as well as many distinct natural behaviors. Do you know? Red wolves, the rarest members of the dog family, almost became extinct before biologists began to breed them in captivity. Red wolves were introduced in North Carolina's Alligator River National Wildlife Refuge beginning in the late 1980s. As of June 2007, more than 200 red wolves also lived in 39 captive breeding centers. Owing to the efforts of many people, red wolves are on the road to recovery. Each animal carries genetic material common to its species, but it also has genetic material that varies. For example, the inherited genetic material of some individual hawks makes them a little faster than other hawks. The faster hawks are more likely to catch more food, stay healthier, and reproduce more. These inherited genetic variations within a species create what is known as genetic diversity. Genetic diversity helps a species adapt to changes and makes the species less vulnerable to eventual extinction. For exactly this reason, SSPs do everything in their power to maintain genetic diversity. SSPs generally start with an extremely small number of animals because most have already died. The SSP for the black-footed ferret, a native of the Great Plains, was started with only 7 founders, or original animals. The red wolf SSP only had 14 founders. The animals in an SSP are housed at a number of different zoos to ensure that an illness or disaster at a single zoo will not wipe out the entire breeding population. Animals are transported to different facilities for mating. A zoo professional keeps careful track of which animals have mated in order to maintain as much genetic diversity as possible. Species are selected for an SSP on the basis of their conservation status, endangered or threatened, and the availability of professionals to devote time to their care and study. Certain species, such as giant pandas and lowland gorillas, were also chosen because they are well known and inspire people to get involved in conservation efforts. More than 100 SSPs exist at the present time. SSPs are a key way in which zoos stand at the forefront of wildlife conservation. They are the best hope for many species to avoid the fate of extinction. Each SSP has a continuing goal of education and a focus on increasing public awareness of the causes of the species' decline. Zoos today. Conservation is the main focus of most zoos today. Public perception has, to a large extent, not yet caught up with this shift in focus. Zoos put an enormous effort into educating the public about their valuable role as conservation centers. At the same time, most people come to zoos at least in part to be entertained. Zoos must keep the public interested, so they are always working to develop new programs and exhibits. The recent addition of a giraffe feeding platform at the Reed Park Zoo in Tucson, Arizona, has been wildly successful. Most of the program's profits go toward conservation projects around the world. Zoo professionals put a great deal of effort into tools and activities that provide animals with stimulation. It has been proven that captive animals with habitat enrichment do much better than those without it. The goal of enrichment is to keep animals stimulated for as long a time as possible, and efforts involve a great deal of trial and error. Zookeepers may spend months developing a new form of enrichment and then discover that an animal has no interest in it. Zookeepers often stimulate natural behaviors by using techniques such as hiding food in enclosures so that animals need to search and reach for it. Other forms of enrichment include things that stimulate the senses. Some zoos make frozen taste treats for their animals, including ratsicles and fishsicles. Other sensory enrichment may include stimulating the sense of smell with cooking spices. Sometimes zookeepers even place animal poop in an animal's enclosure, such as giraffe poop in a lion exhibit, as a type of enrichment. Many zoos do some amount of behavioral training of animals, often as a way to enable staff to provide better care. For example, lions and tigers can be trained to touch a target or to put their tail through a fence. Later, they will accept an injection in the same manner. A baboon can be trained to present a shoulder for the same purpose. Such training can help zoo veterinarians provide better and often less intrusive care. A constant concern at all zoos is where money is going to come from. It takes a huge amount of money to keep and care for zoo animals, maintain exhibits, and pay staff salaries. Zoos must always look for ways to pay for expenses. Every zoo has a wish list of projects, including updating exhibits and developing new ones. Expenses at a zoo. 60% salaries for staff, keepers, groundskeepers, educators, cashiers, curators, and director. 23.9% maintenance and supplies, buildings, exhibits, equipment, vehicles. 7.2% electricity. 6.7% food for animals. 1.2% medicines for animals. 1% getting new animals. How much does it cost to feed zoo animals? Carnivores, lions and tigers, meat, 5 pounds a day, $50 per week per animal. Treats, bones and oxtails, $50 per week per animal. Herbivores, elephants and rhinos, hay, $50 per week per animal. Vitamin and mineral pellets, $50 per week per animal. Herbivores, giraffes, hay, $25 per week per animal. Vitamin and mineral pellets, $25 per week per animal. Herbivores, zebras, hay, $12.50 per week per animal. Vitamin and mineral pellets, $12.50 per week per animal. Omnivores, polar bears, meat, fish, fruit and vegetables, $200 per week per animal. Tortoises, many species, dark leafy green vegetables, $200 per week total for 50 tortoises. Total, $168,000 per year for 500 animals. Conclusion. Today's zoos are extremely different from the private animal collections of rulers long ago. Over the centuries, increased knowledge has resulted in enormous improvements in the care of captive animals, the quality of their enclosures, and the environmental enrichment they receive. Most zoos are taking educated, positive, and active steps to save animals from extinction, as well as to educate the public about the importance of preserving wild habitats. The next time you visit a zoo, keep in mind that its animals are not just entertaining you. They are also reminding you of the amazing diversity of the natural world, which our involvement can help to protect and preserve.